You gave up your savings, your house equity, your retirement. Let me spend $45,000 defending us both. Fair trade. Tears streamed down my face. You shouldn't have to buy your own defense. Neither should you, but here we are. He turned to Linda. When do we start? Now. Linda pulled out more paperwork. Discovery phase begins immediately. We need every document you have: calendars, bank statements, phone records, therapy bills, school records, everything. If you've been documenting for 10 years like you say, we need all of it. We have it, Lucas said. Digitized, time-stamped, verified. 10 years of comprehensive documentation proving she was gone and Grandma was here. Linda's eyebrows rose. You digitized everything? Yes. 7 years ago, I started scanning every document, every receipt, every record. I've been preparing for this since I was 9 years old. You knew she'd coming back? I calculated the probability. It was always just a matter of when, not if. Linda looked between us, me crying. Lucas calm and analytical. You two are remarkable, you know that? We're survivor, I said. No. Linda's voice was firm. You're fighters, and we're going to win. The deposition started 2 weeks later. Sarah went first, sitting in the conference room at Walsh's office looking expensive and victimized. Walsh asked her questions in that smooth, practiced way. She answered perfectly, every lie delivered with conviction. Can you describe your involvement in Lucas's life over the past 10 years? I tried to maintain consistent contact, Sarah said, her voice catching. I visited monthly when possible, called regularly, sent money to help Margaret with his expenses. It was hard being away from him, but I was dealing with severe depression. My therapist recommended space while I healed. Every word was poison wrapped in sympathy. Why didn't you take physical custody? I felt Lucas needed stability with Margaret. Moving him would have been traumatic, but I never stopped being his mother. I never stopped caring. Her voice broke perfectly. I just needed to take care of myself so I could eventually take care of him properly. She provided dates, specific months when she claimed to have visited: December 2013, April 2015, July 2017. Exact dollar amounts she supposedly sent: March 2012, $500. September 2014, $750. All lees. But detailed, consistent lees. I sat there listening, nails digging into my palms so hard they bled. Linda had warned me, stay calm, don't react, let her tell her story, we'll tear it apart later. After Sarah finished, Linda pulled me aside. Her testimony is very polished, very convincing. That's what we're up against. It's all lies. I know, but Margaret, to someone who doesn't know better, she sounds like a devoted mother who struggled with mental health and did her best. We need Lucas to be unshakable. Lucas's deposition was 3 days later. Walsh tried to trip him up, asking questions about memories, about his mother's involvement. Do you remember your mother visiting you? Walsh asked. I don't recall specific visits, Lucas said carefully. Do you remember phone calls from her? I would have to check my records. What about the financial support? Did you know she was sending money? I don't remember receiving money from her. Walsh looked pleased, like Lucas's poor memory supported Sarah's narrative. He thought Lucas was just a confused autistic kid with unreliable recollection. If this moment truly hit home for you, don't forget to tap that like button. It tells me you're right here with me. Can you see a bit of yourself in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what part spoke to you most. He had no idea. Linda asked her questions gently. Lucas, can you describe your relationship with Margaret? She takes care of me, cooks my meals, drives me to therapy, helps with school. She's been there every day for 10 years. Do you want to live with her? Yes. Do you want Sarah to have control of your finances? No. Short answers. Direct. True. But they felt weak against Sarah's elaborate lies. After the deposition, Linda drove us home. He did well, but we need more. We need the evidence. The proof that destroys their documentation. You'll have it, Lucas said from the back seat. I've been working on the presentation. It'll be ready for court. That night I found Lucas in his room surrounded by papers and screens. He'd been working nonstop for days, barely eating, barely sleeping. Lucas, you need to rest. I can't. Not yet. He didn't look at me, focused on his screens. I need to make sure everything is perfect, every piece of evidence verified, every connection proven, no gaps, no weaknesses. You're going to make yourself sick. I'll rest after we win. He finally turned to me. Grandma, do you trust me? Of course. Then trust me now. I know what I'm doing. I've been preparing for this moment my entire conscious life. We're going to win. But only if everything is perfect. I left him there, went to my room, and lay in bed listening to the clicking of his keyboard, the sound that had been the background of our lives for years. My 16-year-old grandson, building our defense one keystroke at a time, preparing for the battle that would determine everything. And I prayed to a God I wasn't sure I believed in anymore that Lucas was right. That all his preparation, all his planning, all his years of building evidence would be enough. Because if it wasn't, Sarah would win. And we'd lose everything. The court date was set for Friday, May 14th, 2021. We had 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks that felt like 3 years and 3 seconds at the same time. Linda came to our house twice a week, going through everything with Lucas. Every document, every piece of evidence, every detail of his analysis system. She was meticulous, aggressive, leaving no stone unturned. Walsh is going to attack your credibility, she told Lucas during one session. You're 16. You're autistic. He's going to suggest you're confused, that your memory is unreliable, that your grandmother has coached you. Let him try, Lucas said calmly. He's going to say your system is untested, that it's just a hobby project from a teenager, not real forensic science. I have client testimonials, purchase agreements, documentation from companies that paid millions for my system because it works. He can say whatever he wants. The evidence speaks for itself. Linda smiled, fierce and proud. Good. Hold on to that certainty, because in that courtroom, they're going to try to shake you. But nothing shook Lucas. He was granite, immovable, prepared for everything. I was the one falling apart. I stopped sleeping entirely. Would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that could go wrong. What if the judge didn't believe us? What if Sarah's tears were more convincing than Lucas's evidence? What if Walsh found some legal loophole I didn't understand? What if we lost? Mrs. Chen found me having a panic attack in my garden one afternoon, hyperventilating, convinced I was having a heart attack. Margaret, breathe. Slow breaths. That's it. I can't do this. Yes, you can. What if we lose? What if Sarah gets control of his money? What if she takes him away from me? The words came out in gasps. 10 years. 10 years I've fought for him. And she can just show up and take it all away? Mrs. Chen gripped my shoulders, forced me to look at her. Listen to me. That boy in there, he's been preparing for this his entire life. He sees patterns you can't see. He knows things you don't know. Trust him. He's 16. He's brilliant. And he loves you. And he's not going to let anyone take you away from him. She softened. Margaret, you've spent 10 years protecting Lucas. Let him protect you now. That night at dinner, I still made Lucas come to the table, even though neither of us was eating properly. He set down his fork and looked at me. You're spiraling. Not a question. An observation. I'm scared, I admitted. I know, but you don't need to be. I have everything we need. He pulled out his tablet, showed me screen after screen of data, analysis, documentation. 7 years of work, Grandma. 7 years of scanning every document, recording every moment, building an unbreakable chain of evidence. They can't beat this. It's mathematically impossible. But what if? No. His voice was firm. No what ifs. What ifs are for people who aren't prepared. We're prepared. When we walk into that courtroom, we're going to have 10 years of absolute proof that you raised me and she didn't. Not just our word against hers. Documented, verified, undeniable truth. Lucas, Grandma, listen to me. He reached across the table, took my hand, rare, precious contact. You saved my life. When Sarah left me on that porch, I was 6 years old and terrified and broken. You could have sent me away. Lots of people told you to. School counselors, social workers, even your friends. They said I was too hard, too expensive, too much for a 74-year-old woman. But you didn't listen. You kept me. You fought for me. Every single day for 10 years you fought. Tears streamed down my face. Because I love you. I know. And now it's my turn to fight, so let me. He squeezed my hand once, then let go. Tuesday morning, we're going to court. Walsh is going to present his fake documents. Sarah is going to cry and lie and play the victim. And then I'm going to stand up and destroy every single lie with evidence so overwhelming that no one will ever doubt the truth again. You sound so certain. I am certain. Because I've been preparing since I was 9 years old. Because I know exactly what we're walking into. Because he paused, searching for words. Because you stayed, Grandma. For 10 years you stayed. Now it's my turn to make sure no one can ever take that away. I couldn't speak. Just nodded through my tears. Now eat something, he said, pushing my plate closer. You've lost 12 pounds in 3 weeks. That's not healthy. Even in the middle of preparing for legal war, he was tracking my weight. That was Lucas, seeing everything, remembering everything, caring in his specific, analytical way. Linda called the night before the court date. How are you holding up? I haven't slept in 3 days. My blood pressure is through the roof. I threw up twice today. I laughed weakly. Other than that, fantastic. I need you to hold it together tomorrow. Walsh is going to try to rattle you. He'll suggest you manipulated Lucas for his money, that you isolated him from Sarah intentionally, that you're a controlling, greedy old woman who saw a meal ticket. The words hit like punches. I know it's not true, but he's going to say it anyway. You need to stay calm. Don't react. Let Lucas do the talking. What if the judge doesn't believe him? Linda was quiet for a moment. Margaret, I've been practicing family law for 23 years. I've seen a lot of terrible people do terrible things to children, but I've never seen anything quite like what Lucas has built. The level of documentation, the sophistication of his evidence, the clarity of his analysis, it's extraordinary. If Judge Harrison doesn't believe him, it won't be because his evidence isn't good enough. It'll be because she's corrupt, and I don't think she is. But you don't know for sure. No one knows anything for sure. That's what faith is. She paused. Have faith in Lucas. He's earned it. After we hung up, I went to Lucas's room. He was still working, even though it was past midnight. Lucas, it's late. I know. Just checking one more time, making sure every link in the chain is solid. I sat on his bed, still made the same way every day, blanket folded at the foot, unchanged for 10 years. Are you scared? He stopped typing, actually considered the question. No, anxious maybe, wanting it to be over, but not scared. Scared is what you feel when you're unprepared and facing unknown variables. I'm prepared. The variables are known. The outcome is predictable. You really believe that? I believe in evidence, Grandma. I believe in truth. And I believe that when you have both really, undeniably have both, you win. He turned to look at me. Do you know what Sarah's biggest mistake was? Leaving? No, coming back. If she'd stayed gone, she'd still be safe. But she got greedy. She saw the money and couldn't help herself. And in coming back, she walked right into the trap I've been building for 7 years. The calculation in his voice, cold, clinical, absolute, should have frightened me. Maybe it did. A little. This was my grandson, but in that moment, he sounded like something else. A chess master, a general, someone who'd been playing the long game while everyone else was focused on the next move. When did you become so? I struggled for the word. Strategic? Around 9 years old. That's when I understood that the world wasn't fair, that people lied, that good intentions didn't matter if you couldn't back them up with proof. He saved his work, shut down 2 of his monitors. I learned it from you, actually. From me? All those school meetings, all those fights with principals and counselors and insurance companies. You'd come home exhausted, crying sometimes, saying, "It's not fair, it's not fair." And I realized you were right. It wasn't fair, but fair doesn't matter. Winning matters, and you win by being more prepared than the other side. I never meant to teach you that. You taught me to survive. This is what survival looks like for someone like me. He stood up, stretched. Now go to sleep. We have a big day tomorrow. I can't sleep. Yes, you can. I made you chamomile tea. It's on your nightstand. Drink it, take your blood pressure medication, and lie down. You need to be functional tomorrow. Even preparing for battle, he was taking care of me. I went to my room, found the tea exactly where he said, drank it, took my pills, lay down in the darkness. And somehow, impossibly, I slept. I dreamed about David. My son, dead now 11 years, appearing in my dream as he'd been before the cancer, healthy, smiling, whole. "You did good, Mom," he said. "Lucas is going to be okay." "I'm so scared, David." "I know, but Lucas isn't. Trust him, he's smarter than both of us combined." I woke at 6 a.m. to the sound of Lucas in the kitchen, making breakfast. The same breakfast he'd eaten every morning for 10 years, scrambled eggs, toast cut diagonally, positioned exactly right on the white plate. Routine, consistency, order. The things that kept Lucas grounded when the world felt chaotic. "Good morning, Grandma." "Morning, baby." I sat at the table, watched him eat. "How do you feel?" "Ready." He finished his eggs, drank from his blue cup, that same cracked, faded cup from 10 years ago. "How about you?" I thought about lying, but Lucas always knew when I lied. Terrified, exhausted, like I might throw up or pass out or both. "That's normal. Your cortisol levels are elevated due to stress. It'll pass once we win." "You're so sure we're going to win?" He looked at me with those brown eyes, David's eyes filled with absolute certainty. "Grandma, I've spent 7 years preparing for this day. Sarah spent 6 weeks creating fake documents and rehearsing lies. This isn't a fair fight. It never was." "What if?" "No what ifs. Just trust me." "Can you do that?" I looked at this 16-year-old who'd been planning his mother's downfall since he was 9. This brilliant, strange, perfect boy who saw patterns where others saw chaos. Who remembered everything. Who turned his autism from a disability into a superpower. "Yes," I said. "I trust you." "Good." He cleared his plates, rinsed them in the sink, same routine, every morning, unchanged. "Now get ready. Court starts at 9. We leave at 8:15. Same route we always take. Nothing different. Nothing scary. Just another day." Except it wasn't just another day. It was the day we'd been preparing for since that doorbell rang a decade ago. The day Sarah had been coming toward since she got greedy. The day Lucas had been building toward since he was old enough to understand that love wasn't enough, you needed proof. "Lucas?" I said as he headed to his room to dress. He turned back. "Yes?" "Thank you. For everything. For preparing. For protecting us. For being exactly who you are." He nodded once, that economical gesture that meant so much from someone who struggled with showing emotion. "You're welcome. Now get dressed. We have a war to win." And in that moment, watching my grandson walk away with absolute confidence in our victory, I believed him. We were going to win. Because Lucas had spent 7 years making sure we would. The war was here. But we were ready. The Suffolk County Family Court was smaller than I'd imagined. Gray walls, fluorescent lights, wooden benches worn smooth by decades of people waiting for justice. It smelled like old paper and floor polish and fear. Sarah was already there when we arrived, sitting at the plaintiff's table with Walsh. She dressed for sympathy, soft pink blouse, minimal makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Looking like a struggling mother, not the woman who'd walked away in designer boots 3 weeks ago. She saw us, and her face did something complicated. Not kite guilt, not kite triumph. Calculation, maybe. Wondering if she'd win. Walsh looked confident, relaxed. His expensive suit probably cost more than I spent on groceries in 6 months. He had a leather briefcase open in front of him, documents organized in neat stacks. We sat at the defendant's table. Linda wore a simple navy suit, professional but not flashy. Lucas wore the button-down shirt we'd bought for this blue, because it was calming for him. His blue cup sat on the table in front of him, filled with water. A security blanket, a reminder of home. All rise. The Honorable Judge Patricia Harrison presiding. Judge Harrison was a black woman in her late 50s, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, gray hair pulled back in a bun. She looked tired, like she'd seen too many ugly custody battles, and believed in justice less with each one. "Please be seated." She opened the file in front of her, read for a moment. Case number 213749. Sarah Cooper versus Margaret Sullivan regarding custody and financial guardianship of minor Lucas Cooper. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the edge of the table. Lucas reached over, squeezed my hand once, then let go. "Mr. Walsh, you may begin." Walsh stood, smooth and polished. "Thank you, Your Honor." This is a straightforward case of parental rights. My client, Sarah Cooper, is Lucas's biological mother. She has never terminated her parental rights. She has maintained consistent involvement in his life from a distance while dealing with severe mental health challenges. Now that she's healthy and stable, she wishes to resume active custody and ensure proper management of Lucas's significant assets. He made it sound so reasonable, so simple. Mrs. Sullivan has done admirable work raising Lucas during Sarah's recovery period. No one disputes that, but legally, Sarah remains his parent. She has documentation showing her continued involvement, phone records, financial support records, visit logs spanning the past decade. With Lucas now controlling substantial wealth at 16, he needs parental guidance to manage those assets responsibly until he reaches majority. Judge Harrison looked at the documents Walsh submitted, studied them carefully. My heart hammered. They looked so real, so official. Miss Reyes, your response? Linda stood. Your Honor, what Mr. Walsh calls maintained involvement was actually complete abandonment. Sarah Cooper left her 6-year-old autistic son on Margaret Sullivan's doorstep 10 years ago and didn't return until Lucas sold software for $3.2 million. She's not here for her son. She's here for his money. And the documentation Mr. Walsh has provided? It's all forged. We can prove it. Walsh objected immediately. Your Honor, that's a serious accusation. It's a serious crime, Linda shot back. Document forgery, perjury, fraud. And we have evidence to prove every single charge. Judge Harrison held up a hand. Let's proceed systematically. Mr. Walsh, call your first witness. The plaintiff calls Sarah Cooper. Sarah took the stand, was sworn in, and Walsh began his questions. His voice was gentle, sympathetic. Sarah, can you describe your relationship with Lucas? She took a shaky breath. Perfect victim. Lucas is my son. I love him more than anything. Being apart from him these past years has been the hardest thing I've ever endured. I wanted to scream. Lucas's hand found mine under the table, held tight. Why were you apart? I suffered severe postpartum depression that evolved into major depressive disorder. After my husband David died, it got worse. I was drowning. My therapist recommended that I get intensive treatment, which meant giving Lucas temporary stability with Margaret while I healed. Tears rolled down her cheeks. It nearly killed me to leave him, but I had to get healthy so I could eventually be the mother he deserved. Did you maintain contact during this time? Yes. I called regularly every week, sometimes twice a week. I sent money whenever I could. I visited monthly when I was able to travel. Margaret knew I was involved. Sarah's voice broke perfectly. She just wanted to keep him to herself. My fingernails drew blood from my palms. Why are you seeking custody now? Because Lucas needs me. He's 16, dealing with sudden wealth, getting attention and pressure he's not equipped to handle. He needs his mother's guidance. And honestly, Sarah looked directly at Judge Harrison. I'm worried about Margaret's influence. She's 80 years old. She's isolated Lucas from me for a decade. She controls all his money through a trust she set up. I'm afraid she's manipulating him for financial gain. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Walsh continued for 30 more minutes. Sarah answered every question perfectly. Dates, amounts, details. December 2013. Visited for Lucas's birthday, stayed 3 days. April 2015. Sent $750 for new therapy equipment. July 2017. Called on Lucas's 13th birthday, spoke for 45 minutes. Lees. All lees. But convincing lees. Linda's cross-examination was brutal. Miss Cooper, you claim you visited in December 2013. What did you do during that visit? Sarah smiled, sad and nostalgic. We went to the park. Lucas loved the swings back then. We had hot chocolate at that little cafe on Beacon Street. Lucas is autistic. He's never liked swings, the motion makes him nauseous, and he can't drink hot chocolate. Dairy intolerance, documented since age 4. You'd know that if you'd actually been there. Sarah's smile faltered. I must be misremembering the details. It was 8 years ago. Convenient memory loss. Linda pulled out a document. Here's Margaret's calendar from December 2013. Every single day is accounted for. Therapy appointments, doctor visits. School meetings. No visits from you. Not one. Maybe she didn't write it down. Margaret wrote down everything. Grocery trips, oil changes, everything. But somehow she forgot to note monthly visits from her grandson's mother? Walsh objected. Argumentative, Your Honor. Sustained. Move on, Miss Reyes. Linda shifted tactics. You claim you sent money regularly. $750 in April 2015 for therapy equipment. What kind of equipment? I don't remember exactly. Margaret would know. Because it never happened. Because you never sent a penny. Linda's voice was sharp, cutting. In fact, Margaret sent you money, $68,000 over 2 years, for Lucas's therapy, you claimed. But Lucas's therapy was covered by Margaret's insurance and out-of-pocket payments all documented. So, where did that $68,000 go, Miss Cooper? Sarah's face paled. That was different. That was for your new car, your new apartment, your fresh start in California while your son rocked himself to sleep every night wondering why his mother didn't want him? Objection. Walsh was on his feet. Counsel is badgering the witness. I'm establishing pattern of deception, Your Honor. Overruled. Answer the question, Miss Cooper. Sarah's mask was cracking. I needed that money. I was struggling. You were struggling? While Margaret, on a fixed income, was paying $3,000 a month for Lucas's therapy, while she was selling her jewelry to buy his medications, while she was taking a reverse mortgage on her house to keep him fed and clothed and safe? I didn't know it was that bad. Because you didn't call. You didn't visit. You didn't care. Linda was furious now, controlled fury, but fury nonetheless. The only true thing you've said today is that you love money more than you love your son. And now that he has money, you've come back to take it. That's not true. Sarah was crying now, real tears finally, not of remorse, of frustration that she was losing. I love Lucas. I always have. I couldn't handle it then. But I can now. You can handle $3.2 million. That's what you can handle. Linda sat down. Sarah remained on the stand, mascara running, facade shattered. Judge Harrison looked at her with something that might have been contempt. You may step down. Walsh called 2 more witnesses, a therapist who'd supposedly treated Sarah, a neighbor who claimed to have seen her visiting. Linda destroyed both of them in cross-examination. The therapist couldn't remember specific sessions. The neighbor's dates didn't match any documented trips Sarah could have made. Then it was our turn. The defense calls Margaret Sullivan. I stood on shaking legs, made my way to the witness stand, was sworn in, looked out at the courtroom, at Sarah's cold eyes, at Walsh's predatory smile, at Lucas's calm, certain face. Linda's questions were gentle, letting me tell the story. The abandonment, the years of struggle, the therapy bills and school fights and sleepless nights. The $68,000 I'd given Sarah, believing I was helping my grandson. Mrs. Sullivan, in 10 years, how many times did Sarah call? Once, the day before Christmas, 2010, to tell me she wasn't coming back. How many times did she visit? Never. Not once in 10 years. How much money did she send to help with Lucas's care? Nothing. Not a penny. Who took Lucas to therapy 3 times a week for 10 years? I did. Who fought the school district to keep him in mainstream classes? I did. Who stayed up all night when he couldn't sleep? I did. My voice broke. Every single night, every single struggle, every single victory. I was there. She wasn't. And now she wants to come back and take him because he's valuable? Because he's worth millions? She doesn't love him. She never did. She loves money. And I will not let her destroy him for her own greed. Walsh's cross-examination was vicious. Mrs. Sullivan, you're 80 years old. How much longer do you reasonably expect to live? The cruelty of it made me gasp. I don't. 5 years? 10 if you're lucky? And then what happens to Lucas? Wouldn't it be better if his actual mother was involved now, so there's continuity when you inevitably die? Objection! Linda was furious. Withdrawn. Walsh smiled, knowing the damage was done. Mrs. Sullivan, you set up a trust controlling Lucas's money. You're the trustee. That's convenient, isn't it? I set it up to protect him. From everyone except yourself. You have access to $3.2 million. For a woman who sold her jewelry to pay bills, that must be tempting. I would never. You took $68,000 from Sarah over the years. Why should we believe you won't take from Lucas? She gave me that money willingly. For Lucas's care. Did you document what you spent it on? Keep receipts? He hesitated. I had documentation. Lucas had made sure of that. But the way Walsh asked made me doubt myself. Mrs. Sullivan, you've isolated Lucas from his mother for 10 years. You've controlled his finances, his education, his entire life. Isn't it possible you've manipulated him into believing your version of events? No, I never. He's autistic, vulnerable, easy to manipulate if you're the only person in his life. Lucas is brilliant, more brilliant than you could possibly. He's a confused 16-year-old who's been coached by the woman who controls his money, the woman who stands to lose everything if his real mother gets custody. I was crying now, furious and helpless. Everything I said, Walsh twisted into something ugly. Judge Harrison finally intervened. Mr. Walsh, you've made your point. Mrs. Sullivan, you may step down. I stumbled back to our table. Lucas handed me his blue cup. I drank, my hands shaking so badly, water spilled on the table. It's okay, he whispered. Watch. Linda stood. Your Honor, the defense calls Lucas Cooper. And my grandson walked to the stand calm, prepared, ready for the war he'd been planning for 7 years. This was it. Everything we'd fought for came down to the next hour. Lucas was sworn in, placed his hand on the Bible, and promised to tell the truth, as if he'd ever done anything else. Truth was his religion, evidence his gospel. He sat in the witness chair, hands folded in his lap, looking directly at Judge Harrison. Not uncomfortable, not nervous, just present. Linda approached gently. Lucas, can you state your name and age for the record? Lucas David Cooper. I'm 16 years old. Do you know why we're here today? Yes. Sarah Cooper is claiming she maintained involvement in my life for the past 10 years and deserves custody and financial guardianship. Those claims are false. How do you know they're false? Because I remember everything. I have eidetic memory, a symptom of my autism. I remember every day of the past 10 years with perfect clarity. Sarah was not present for any of them. Walsh started to object, but Judge Harrison held up a hand. Let him speak. I remember the day she left, Lucas continued, his voice flat, clinical. November 15th, 2010, 6:47 p.m. She told Margaret it would be just for the weekend. She never came back. I remember the phone call on Christmas Eve when she said she couldn't do it anymore. I remember standing in the hallway listening to Margaret cry on the kitchen floor. I remember all of it. Linda pulled out a document. Lucas, what is this? He glanced at it. My daily journal. I've kept it since I was 9 years old. Every day documented meals, activities, therapy sessions, school meetings. 7 years of comprehensive records. And in those 7 years, how many times does Sarah appear? 0. She appears 0 times, because she was never there. Mr. Walsh has presented documents showing regular contact, phone records, visit logs, financial transfers. Can you explain those? They're forgeries. Lucas's voice didn't change, just stating facts. I analyzed them using the authentication system. I built the one I sold for $3.2 million. Every document they've presented was created within the last 6 weeks, not over 10 years as claimed. Judge Harrison leaned forward. You can prove this? Yes, Your Honor. I can demonstrate it right now if you'll allow me to connect my laptop to the courtroom display. She nodded. Proceed. Lucas pulled out his laptop, the same one he'd been working on for years. A bailiff helped him connect it to the large screen at the front of the courtroom. This is DAAVS Digital Art and Document Authentication Verification System, Lucas explained. It analyzes digital documents for authenticity, checking metadata, creation dates, editing history, and signature consistency. He pulled up one of Sarah's phone records, the one claiming weekly calls from 2012 to 2015. This document claims to be from Verizon, dated from 2012. But watch. He ran his program. Numbers filled the screen, data streaming past. The file was created on March 23, 2021, 6 weeks ago. The font is wrong. Verizon changed their invoice format in 2014, but this uses the newer format throughout. The metadata shows it was created in Microsoft Word, not generated from Verizon's billing system. He pulled up another document, financial transfer records. These claim Sarah sent money through Western Union from 2013 to 2019, but Western Union's receipt format changed 3 times during that period. These all use the current format, applied retroactively. It's lazy forgery. He ran the analysis. Creation date, March 25, 2021. All of them created the same day, within hours of each other. Judge Harrison was staring at the screen, transfixed. Lucas continued methodically, destroying each piece of evidence. Visit logs forged signatures that didn't match Sarah's actual signature from documents predating 2010. Dates that claimed she visited on days when Margaret's calendar showed they were out of state for therapy consultations. But the most damning evidence, Lucas said, pulling up a new screen, is what she didn't forge, what she couldn't have known to forge. He displayed Margaret's phone records, 10 years of them. These are actual phone records from Margaret's carrier. Every call in and out for 10 years. Sarah's number appears exactly once, December 24, 2010. The call that ended our relationship. After that, nothing. Not a single call in 10 years. He pulled up bank statements. Margaret's complete financial records. No deposits from Sarah. Not one. But here he highlighted several large withdrawals. $68,000 sent to Sarah over 24 months. 2008 to 2010. For my therapy, she claimed. But here he pulled up insurance records. My therapy was covered by Margaret's insurance. Out-of-pocket maximum was $3,000 per year. So where did the other $62,000 go? Sarah was pale, gripping the table. Walsh stood. Your Honor, this is highly technical testimony from a teenager. From the teenager who sold this exact system for $3.2 million, Judge Harrison said sharply. To whom? Mr. Cooper? Anderson Security Solutions, Trimark Forensics, Global Fraud Prevention, 3 major corporations who verified the accuracy of my system before purchasing. I can provide their contact information if you'd like to verify my credentials. That won't be necessary. Judge Harrison was looking at Sarah with barely concealed disgust. Continue, Lucas. There's more. Physical evidence that corroborates the digital evidence. Lucas opened a box I hadn't known he'd brought. Inside were plastic bags, evidence bags. This is the blue cup Margaret gave me the first night I arrived. It has my fingerprints from age 6, Margaret's fingerprints from every time she washed it. No fingerprints from Sarah, because she was never there to touch it. He pulled out another bag. This is a picture album I brought in my backpack that first night. The last page has a handwritten note in pen. Sorry, sweetie, I can't. Handwriting analysis shows it matches Sarah's writing from 2010, but the signature on the custody documents she submitted? Different pressure patterns, different letter formation. She's changed how she writes over 10 years, but whoever forged those documents didn't account for that. Lucas pulled out more items, a calendar from 2013 with Margaret's handwriting documenting every day, grocery receipts showing purchases for my specific dietary needs. Therapy bills with Margaret's signature, never Sarah's. 7 years of physical documentation, Lucas said, because when I was 9 years old I realized something. I realized Sarah would come back when I had value. I realized she'd lie about being involved. And I realized the only way to fight lies was with evidence so comprehensive that no one could doubt the truth. The courtroom was silent. So I documented everything. I scanned every receipt, every calendar, every bill. I built a blockchain-style verification system where each document links to the ones before and after it. Changing one piece breaks the entire chain. It's mathematically impossible to fake. He pulled up a massive diagram on the screen, 10 years of documentation, all connected, all verified, all unbreakable. This is the truth. Margaret raised me. Sarah abandoned me. And now that I'm worth $3.2 million, Sarah wants to come back and take money that isn't hers from someone she never loved. Objection. Walsh was on his feet. Your Honor, this is inflammatory. It's the truth, Lucas said, looking directly at Sarah. You called me defective. I was standing in the hallway. I heard you on the phone with Margaret. You said I was broken. You said you deserved a normal life. You said I was... His voice finally wavered slightly. You said I was the reason Dad gave up. Sarah's face crumpled. Lucas, I didn't mean. Yes, you did. You meant every word. Because that's who you are. Someone who values money over people, comfort over responsibility, your own happiness over your son's survival. He turned back to Judge Harrison. I don't want her custody. I don't want her guidance. I want her to leave and never come back. Just like she did 10 years ago, except this time, she doesn't get to take anything with her. Linda let the words hang in the air. Then, no further questions, Your Honor. Walsh stood for cross-examination, but he looked shaken. Lucas, you're autistic. Doesn't that affect your memory? Your perception of events? Autism affects my social communication, not my memory. My recall is actually enhanced hyperthymesia is common in autistic individuals. I remember everything with perfect clarity. But you were 6 years old. Children have unreliable memories. Neurotypical children do. Autistic children with eidetic memory don't. I can tell you what I ate for breakfast on March 14th, 2012. Scrambled eggs, toast cut diagonally, positioned on the white plate at 9:17 a.m. Margaret made it, as she did every morning for 10 years. Where was Sarah that morning? Walsh had no answer. Isn't it possible your grandmother coached you, told you what to say? No. Margaret doesn't lie. It's one of the things I appreciate most about her. When I ask a question, she tells me the truth even when it hurts. When she says Sarah wasn't there, it's not coaching. It's fact. You built this system to prove your grandmother's case. I built this system when I was 12 years old, 3 years before Sarah came back. I built it to verify truth in art and documents. I didn't know I'd need it for this, but I suspected. Because patterns are predictable, and greedy people always come back when there's money to take. Walsh tried for another 30 minutes, but Lucas was unshakable. Every question, answered with evidence. Every insinuation, destroyed with facts. Every attempt to paint him as confused or manipulated, met with clarity and precision. Finally, Walsh gave up. No further questions. Linda stood. Your Honor, we'd like to call one more witness. Not for testimony, but for verification. Dr. Patricia Morrison, Lucas's pediatrician for the past 10 years. An older woman entered the courtroom, was sworn in. Dr. Morrison, how long have you been treating Lucas? Since November 2010, when Margaret brought him to my office after his mother abandoned him. Can you describe that first visit? Lucas was severely traumatized, nonverbal, refusing food, showing signs of neglect. Margaret had no medical records, no information about his care. She was terrified and overwhelmed. I helped her get him evaluated for autism, set up therapy, get him stable. Over the next 10 years, I saw them regularly. Margaret at every single appointment. Zara at 0. Did Sarah ever call to check on Lucas's health? Never, not once in 10 years. Margaret made every medical decision alone, paid every bill alone. If Sarah was involved as she claims, I never saw any evidence of it. Linda thanked her, sat down. Walsh declined to cross-examine. Judge Harrison looked at Sarah, at Walsh, at the mountain of evidence Lucas had built. I've seen enough. I'm ready to rule. My heart stopped. This was it. 10 years of fighting, 7 years of Lucas preparing, all coming down to this moment. Judge Harrison's face was grave, angry even. Miss Cooper, in 27 years on the bench, I've seen a lot of terrible parents. But what you've done here, abandoning your autistic child and then returning a decade later with forged documents to steal his money, is one of the most egregious cases of parental misconduct I've encountered. Sarah started crying. Real tears now, of fear. Mr. Walsh, you're an officer of this court. Presenting forged documents is a crime. I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal investigation. Walsh's face went white. As for custody, Judge Harrison looked at Lucas, then at me. Full custody and guardianship is awarded to Margaret Sullivan. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order. Sarah Cooper is not to contact Lucas or Margaret for any reason. She is not to come within 500 feet of their home. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. The gavel struck. It was over. We'd won. Lucas looked at me, and for the first time since he was 6 years old, he smiled. Really smiled. I told you. he said quietly. 7 years of preparation. We were always going to win. And I broke down completely, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe, while my 16-year-old grandson held my hand and told me it was okay. We were safe. Finally, after 10 years of terror, we were safe. We walked out of that courtroom into May sunlight that felt like rebirth. Linda was euphoric, professional mask finally cracking. That was the most thorough evisceration of a fraudulent case I've ever witnessed. Lucas, you were extraordinary. I was prepared, he said simply. That's all. But it wasn't all. It was 7 years of a child teaching himself law and forensics and pattern recognition because he knew his mother would come back for his money. 7 years of building fortress walls out of documentation and truth. Mrs. Chen was waiting outside the courthouse. She'd taken the bus downtown to be there when we emerged. She took one look at my face and knew. You won. We won. I could barely get the words out through tears. She's gone. Restraining order. Criminal investigation. She's gone. Mrs. Chen pulled me into a hug while Lucas stood awkwardly beside us, uncomfortable with physical affection that didn't involve him directly but tolerating it because he understood I needed it. I knew you would win, Mrs. Chen said. That boy is too smart to lose. That boy saved us. I looked at Lucas, this 16-year-old who'd spent half his life preparing for battle. I don't know how to thank you. You already did. Every morning for 10 years. Same breakfast, same routine, same love. That's thanks enough. We went to the diner near our house, Lucas's favorite, because they made his eggs exactly right and never changed their menu. He ordered his usual. I couldn't eat. Just watched him methodically work through his meal while my hands still shook with adrenaline. What happens now? I asked. To Sarah? Criminal investigation for document forgery and perjury, Linda said. She joined us, still riding the high of our victory. Walsh, too, he presented those documents knowing they were fake. He could be disbarred. Sarah's looking at felony charges, 2 to 5 years if convicted. Good, I said, surprising myself with the venom in my voice. She deserves worse. She'll get worse, Lucas said quietly. The news will cover this. Mother attempts to steal autistic son's millions with forged documents. It'll destroy her reputation. Walsh's career is over. They'll both be pariahs. He said it without satisfaction, without cruelty. Just stating facts. Does that bother you? Linda asked. That your mother might go to prison? Lucas thought about it while chewing his toast, always careful, always deliberate. No. She made choices. Choices have consequences. That's how the world works. But I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not regret exactly. Maybe sadness that it had to be this way. That the woman who gave birth to him was so broken that he'd had to spend 7 years building weapons against her. The news coverage started that evening. We'd barely gotten home when Linda called. The media got hold of the case. Boston Globe wants an interview. Channel 7. NPR. Everyone wants to talk about the autistic teen who caught his mother's fraud with his own software. No interviews, I said immediately. Actually, Lucas appeared beside me. I'll do one. Just one. To control the narrative. Lucas, you hate attention. I hate attention when it's pitying or condescending. This is different. This is showing people that autistic individuals aren't victims or charity cases. We're capable. We're valuable. I want people to see that. So we did one interview. Kate Anderson, the same reporter who'd covered his original sale. She came to our house, set up in our living room where Lucas had first learned to organize toy cars by color gradient. Lucas, how does it feel knowing you saved yourself and your grandmother with software you built? It feels like justice, he said, looking directly at the camera. For 10 years, people told me I couldn't. Couldn't learn, couldn't succeed, couldn't contribute. My own mother called me defective. But I'm not defective, I'm different. And different isn't less than, it's just different. What would you say to other autistic kids who are struggling? Document everything. Build systems. Find your gifts, and every autistic person has gifts, and develop them relentlessly. The world won't accommodate you. It won't be fair. So you have to make yourself undeniable. Make yourself so good at what you do that no one can ignore you or dismiss you or claim you're not capable. That sounds exhausting. It is. But it's better than being helpless. The interview aired 3 days later. My phone exploded. Old friends I hadn't heard from in years. Former colleagues from the museum. Random people wanting to congratulate me, to tell me how inspiring Lucas was, to ask for advice about their own autistic children. I was overwhelmed. Lucas was not he'd expected this. It'll die down in 2 weeks, he predicted. News cycle moves fast. Something else will be more interesting. He was right, as always. But some calls mattered. Mr. Patterson came by, tears in his old eyes. Margaret, I'm so proud of that boy. So proud. He did it all himself. No. You did it together. You gave him stability and love. He gave you protection and justice. That's what family is. If this scene touched your heart, tap like to let me know it resonated with you. Do you see a glimpse of your own story in theirs? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Stephen, Lucas's first employee, the young man I'd fought for years ago in 4th grade, called Mrs. Cooper. I saw the news. Mr. Cooper is incredible. Is he still hiring? What? For his new company, the hiring platform for neurodivergent people. I want to work for him. I want to help build what he's building. I looked at Lucas, who was at his computer as always. Did you already start a new company? Of course. I told you I would. The authentication system was never the goal. It was just the funding mechanism. He pulled up a website professionally designed, already functional. Neurotalent Connections. We match autistic, ADHD, and other neurodivergent individuals with companies that need pattern recognition, detail work, data analysis, things we're naturally good at. When did you build this? I've been working on it for 6 months. Didn't want to mention it until the court case was resolved. Didn't want Sarah knowing about it. He clicked through screens, showing job listings, applicant profiles, company partnerships. I have 12 employees now, all neurodivergent, all people society said couldn't succeed. We're proving them wrong. My heart swelled with pride so intense it hurt. How are you paying them? From the $3.2 million. It's not my money, Grandma. It's our money, yours and mine. And I'm investing it in people like us, people who deserve a chance. Mrs. Chen came over that evening, as she often did, found me crying in the garden again, but these were different tears. Relief, pride, exhaustion, joy, all mixed together. It's really over, I said. Yes. Sarah's going to prison. Walsh is being investigated by the Bar Association. We won everything. You did. So why do I still feel scared? Mrs. Chen sat beside me in the dirt, both of us too old for this but doing it anyway. Because you've been in survival mode for 10 years. Your body doesn't know how to not be afraid yet. Give it time. What if something else happens? What if there's another threat I can't see coming? Then Lucas will see it coming. That boy has been 3 steps ahead of everyone his entire life. Trust him. I did trust him. But trusting didn't make the fear disappear immediately. That night, Lucas knocked on my bedroom door, unusual for him. He preferred routine, and bedtime routine didn't include conversations. Grandma? Can I come in? Of course. He sat on the edge of my bed. Awkward, uncomfortable with the intimacy of the setting. I need to tell you something. My stomach dropped. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. He struggled with words, unusual for someone so articulate. I know I'm hard to raise. I know I made your life difficult. The routines, the sensory issues, the school fights, all of it. I know you gave up everything for me. Lucas, let me finish. I know you gave up everything, and I can't change the past. I can't give you back your retirement or your social life or the easier life you would have had if Sarah had been a real mother. But I can give you the future. Financial security, a house without a reverse mortgage, the ability to retire completely if you want, travel if you want, whatever you want. Tears streamed down my face. I don't want any of that. I just want you. You have me. You'll always have me. I'm not Sarah. I don't leave. He looked at me with those brown eyes, David's eyes, filled with a seriousness beyond his years. I'm going to take care of you for the rest of your life. Same way you took care of me. That's the deal. That's not how it works. Parents take care of children, not the other way. We're not parent and child, we're partners. We have been since I was 6 years old. You gave me 10 years of safety. I'm giving you the rest of your life of security. Fair trade. He said it so matter-of-factly, like he was negotiating a business contract, but I heard the love underneath the clinical language. Lucas's love looked like preparation and protection and plans for the future. I love you, Lucas. I know. I love you too. That's why I spent 7 years building a fortress around us. That's why I'm building a company that will generate income forever. That's why, he paused. That's why I made sure you'd never have to be afraid again. After he left, I lay in bed thinking about the miracle of it all. A 6-year-old autistic boy, abandoned and traumatized, who'd grown into a 16-year-old genius who'd saved us both. Not despite his autism, because of it. His pattern recognition, his memory, his detail obsession, his inability to lie, all the things that made him different. Those were exactly the things that had saved us. Sarah had called him defective. She couldn't have been more wrong. Lucas wasn't defective. He was extraordinary. And finally, the world was starting to see what I'd known all along. The next morning, I made his breakfast, same routine, same love. But everything felt different, lighter somehow. We'd survived the war. Now we could finally live in peace. Lucas ate his eggs, drank from his blue cup, and told me about his plans for the company. Expansion into 5 more states, partnerships with major tech firms, an educational program teaching companies how to properly hire and support neurodivergent employees. You're going to change the world, I said. I'm going to change some things, he corrected. Make it easier for people like me. That's enough. But it wasn't enough for me. Watching him build something beautiful out of the ashes of abandonment that was everything. My grandson, the boy nobody wanted, was becoming the man everybody needed. And I got to watch it happen. That was my reward for staying. For fighting. For loving him when no one else would. Sarah thought she could come back and take the money. But she couldn't take this relationship. This bond forged through 10 years of routine and ritual and relentless love. We'd won more than a court case. We'd won the right to keep being exactly who we were to each other. Grandmother and grandson. Partners in survival. Family. And nobody, not Sarah, not Walsh, not anyone could ever take that away. The district attorney's office moved fast. Within 2 weeks of our court victory, Sarah and Walsh were both indicted. Sarah, 3 counts of document forgery, 2 counts of perjury, 1 count of attempted fraud. Each count carried 2 to 5 years in prison. Walsh, conspiracy to commit fraud, presenting false evidence. And the Bar Association's Ethics Committee opened a formal investigation into his conduct. Linda called me the day the indictments came through. Margaret, they want you and Lucas to testify at the criminal trial. My stomach dropped. We have to go through this again? The evidence is already there. You might not even need to take the stand. Lucas's documentation is so comprehensive that it speaks for itself. But the DA wants you available if needed. What's Lucas say? I'm fine with it, Lucas said from across the room. He'd heard the whole conversation. His hearing was exceptional, another autism trait that served him well. If testifying puts Sarah in prison where she belongs, I'll testify. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for June. Sarah got a new lawyer, a public defender named Rodriguez, who looked exhausted before the hearing even started. Walsh got Thompson and Associates, an expensive firm trying to save his career. I watched Sarah walk into that courthouse in handcuffs. She'd lost weight, her hair was dull, makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. She looked broken. Good. I felt a twinge of guilt for thinking it, but only a twinge. This woman had abandoned my grandson, had stolen from me, had tried to steal millions more. She deserved every consequence. The hearing was brutal. The DA, a sharp woman in her 40s named Patricia Chen, no relation to my neighbor, presented evidence methodically. Every forged document, every timestamp showing recent creation, every inconsistency in Sarah's testimony. Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. Miss Cooper created elaborate forgeries specifically to defraud her autistic son of $3.2 million. This is calculated, premeditated theft targeting a vulnerable individual. Sarah's lawyer tried to argue mental health issues, past trauma, mistakes made in desperation, but it all fell flat against the mountain of evidence Lucas had built. Walsh's hearing was separate but equally damning. His firm fired him before the hearing even started damage control, protecting their reputation. He sat alone at the defense table, his expensive suit looking shabby somehow, his confident demeanor completely gone. Mr. Walsh knowingly presented forged documents to the court, Patricia Chen said. As an officer of the court, as someone who swore an oath to uphold justice, he instead participated in a conspiracy to defraud a minor child. His conduct is inexcusable. Both were held over for trial. Bail was set at $50,000 for Sarah. Her father posted it, though I heard later he disowned her afterward. Walsh's bail was $200,000. He managed to post it, but barely. Lucas watched all of this with clinical detachment. Pattern completion, he said when we left Walsh's hearing. He made choices. Now he faces consequences. It's logical. But I noticed he held his blue cup tighter than usual. Even after everything, watching his mother be led away in handcuffs affected him. He just didn't show it the way neurotypical people would. Mrs. Chen found me having a panic attack in my garden a week later. I'd been doing better, sleeping more, eating properly. But the upcoming trial brought everything back. What if they get off? What if some technicality? Margaret, stop. They have Lucas's evidence. They have their own forgeries. They have documentation of fraud. There's no technicality that saves them. But what if? No what ifs. You sound like you did before the custody hearing. And look how that turned out. Lucas was right then. Trust that the system will work now. The system didn't protect Lucas 10 years ago when Sarah abandoned him. No. But Lucas protected himself. And now the system is catching up to what Lucas already proved, that Sarah is a criminal who deserves punishment. The trial date was set for September. 3 months away. 3 months of waiting, worrying, reliving everything. Lucas didn't wait or worry. He worked. His company, Neurotalent Connections, was expanding rapidly. 20 employees now, all neurodivergent, all thriving. Stephen, my former student who'd become Lucas's first hire, stopped by one afternoon. He was Lucas's operations manager now, running the day-to-day while Lucas focused on strategy. Mrs. Cooper, you should see what Lucas built. It's incredible. We've placed 43 people in jobs in the past 2 months. People who couldn't get hired anywhere else because companies saw their autism or ADHD as liabilities. Lucas showed companies their assets. He's always been good at seeing value where others see problems. He learned that from you. Stephen's eyes were serious. You saw value in him when his own mother didn't. Now he's teaching the world to see what you saw. After Stephen left, I found Lucas at his computer as always, but this time he wasn't working. He was looking at old pictures from when he was 6, 7, 8. Pictures I'd taken documenting our life together. What are you doing? Remembering. Sometimes I forget how far we've come. Looking at these helps. I sat beside him, looked at the photos. Lucas at 7, lining up toy cars. Lucas at 9, writing in his notebooks. Lucas at 12, first time at his computer. Every stage of development, every victory, all documented. You were such a serious child. I still am. Yes, but you smile sometimes now. That's new. He considered that. I have reasons to smile now. We're safe. You're safe. The threats are neutralized. That's worth smiling about. Is that what happiness is for you? Absence of threat? He thought about it for a long time. Maybe, or maybe happiness is having someone who stays, who doesn't leave when things get hard, who makes the same breakfast every morning for 10 years because that's what you need. He looked at me. Maybe happiness is you, Grandma. I cried then, quietly, while Lucas sat beside me in companionable silence. He didn't do hugs often, but he held my hand. That was enough. July brought unexpected news. Walsh took a plea deal. He's pleading guilty to conspiracy and false evidence, Linda explained over the phone. In exchange, he's testifying against Sarah, giving details about how they planned the fraud, how they created the documents, everything. He's betraying her? He's saving himself. Plea deal gets him 18 months instead of 5 years, and he surrenders his law license voluntarily instead of being disbarred. He's cutting his losses. What does this mean for Sarah? It means her only co-conspirator just became the prosecution's star witness. Her case just became unwinnable. Sarah's lawyer approached the DA about a plea deal too, but Patricia Chen wasn't interested. We're taking this to trial, she told us during a meeting at her office. Walsh's testimony, Lucas's evidence, the documentation you've provided, this is a slam dunk. And honestly, I want a jury to hear this story. I want people to understand what she did. Abandoning an autistic child, stealing from the grandmother who raised him, coming back a decade later to steal millions more. That story needs to be told. Will Lucas have to testify? I asked. Probably. But after the custody hearing, I'm not worried. That kid can handle anything. That kid is 16 and has been through enough. Patricia's expression softened. I know, and if there was any other way, I'd take it. But Lucas is the only one who can explain his system, who can prove the documents are forged beyond any doubt. His testimony is crucial. Lucas, sitting quietly in the corner, spoke up. I'll do it. I want to do it. I want to make sure she never hurts anyone else the way she hurt us. The trial started September 13th, 2021, almost exactly 1 year after Lucas had sold his system. 1 year since he'd set in motion the events that brought Sarah back into our lives and destroyed her completely. The courtroom was packed. News media, curious observers, even some advocacy groups for autism awareness. Lucas's story had touched a nerve, the abandoned autistic child who saved himself with brilliance and preparation. Sarah looked terrible, thin, pale, aged beyond her years. She cried throughout jury selection, throughout opening statements. Her lawyer kept playing up mental health issues, her struggles with depression, her genuine belief that she'd been involved in Lucas's life. But Walsh's testimony destroyed any sympathy she might have garnered. She contacted me in March, Walsh said from the witness stand, not looking at Sarah. Said her son had just sold software for millions, asked if there was a way to get custody and control of the money. I said legally, she'd need to prove continued involvement. She said that wouldn't be a problem, she could create documentation. Did you help her create false documents? Yes. I prepared templates for phone records, visit logs, financial transfers. She filled in dates and details. I had them notarized by someone who owed me a favor and didn't ask questions. It took us 3 weeks to build a complete fake history of her involvement. Did you believe these documents would hold up in court? I thought they'd be good enough. Most people don't have the resources to disprove them. We didn't know about Lucas's system, didn't know he'd been documenting everything for years. If we'd known that, Walsh paused. If we'd known that, we never would have tried. You can't lie to someone who spent 7 years building a truth detection system. The jury was riveting, disgust clear on several faces. When Lucas took the stand, the courtroom went silent. Everyone wanted to hear from the autistic teen who'd outsmarted his own mother. Patricia's questions were gentle, letting Lucas tell the story. The abandonment, the years of documentation, the system he'd built, the analysis proving forgery. Lucas, why did you start documenting everything when you were 9 years old? Because I recognized the pattern. Sarah left when I was expensive and difficult. If I became valuable, she'd come back. That's basic behavioral prediction. I wanted to be ready when it happened. A 9-year-old planned for this? I'm autistic, not stupid. Pattern recognition is one of my strengths. I saw the pattern. I prepared for it. That's logical. The jury loved him. I could see it in their faces. Admiration, sympathy, respect. Sarah's lawyer tried to cross-examine, tried to suggest Lucas had been coached or manipulated. Lucas destroyed every argument with facts, with evidence, with the calm certainty that came from 7 years of preparation. After 3 days of testimony, the jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sarah broke down completely when the verdict was read, sobbing, begging for mercy. The judge showed none. Miss Cooper, you abandoned your vulnerable child and then returned a decade later to steal from him. You created elaborate forgeries, committed perjury, and showed absolutely no remorse until you were caught. Sentencing is set for October 15th. Walsh got his 18 months, as promised in his plea deal. He'd serve in minimum security, likely out in 12 with good behavior. Sarah's sentencing was harsher. The judge gave her the maximum 5 years for each count of forgery, to be served consecutively. 15 years total, though she'd be eligible for parole after 8. You targeted your own autistic child for financial gain, Judge Morrison said during sentencing. You showed calculated cruelty and complete disregard for his well-being. This sentence reflects the severity of your crimes. Sarah was led away in handcuffs, still crying, finally understanding what she'd lost. Not the money, she never had that. But the possibility of redemption. Of ever being anything other than the woman who betrayed her son for millions she'd never touch. We walked out of that courthouse for the final time. Lucas held my hand, rare, precious contact. "It's over," I said. "Really over?" "Yes. Now we can focus on building instead of defending." "That's better." Mrs. Chen was waiting outside, as she'd been at every major moment. "Justice?" "Justice," I confirmed. "Good. Now you can finally rest." But I didn't want to rest. I wanted to live. For the first time in 10 years, I felt like I could breathe. We'd survived. And now, finally, we could thrive. 6 months after Sarah's sentencing, I woke up one morning and realized I hadn't had a nightmare in weeks. For 10 years, I'd dreamed of losing Lucas. Of Sarah coming back. Of courts taking him away. Of being too old or too poor or too broken to keep him safe. Those dreams had haunted me every night, leaving me exhausted before the day even began. But they'd stopped. Quietly, gradually, they'd faded away. Lucas noticed at breakfast. He noticed everything. "You look different." "Different how?" "Lighter. Less tense. Your cortisol levels must be normalizing." He took a bite of his eggs, positioned exactly as always. "That's good. Chronic stress was affecting your health." "Were you worried about my health?" He looked at me with those serious brown eyes. "Always. You're 81 now. Statistically, your risk factors for cardiac events are elevated. Reducing stress improves outcomes significantly." Only Lucas could say, "I worry about you dying," by citing statistical health risks. But I understood. That was his love language: data and preparation, and making sure I took my medications. "I feel better than I have in years," I admitted. "Good. Because we have work to do." "What work?" He pulled out his tablet, showed me plans I hadn't seen before. Neurotalent Connections is expanding internationally, but that's not the main project. This is, on the screen, architectural drawings, floor plans, detailed specifications. What am I looking at? A residential facility for autistic adults. 30 units, each designed for sensory needs. Common areas for socialization optional, not mandatory. Job training center. Independent living with support available. I'm calling it the Sullivan Center. My throat closed. "Lucas, you asked me once what happens to me when you die. This is the answer. A place where people like me can live independently with appropriate support, where we're not stuck in group homes with people who don't understand us, where we can work, contribute, have lives." He scrolled through more images. "I'm funding construction with my money. $65 million project. It'll house 200 residents eventually, employ another 100 staff. 65 million, Lucas? That's almost all your money. It's the right use of money. Building something that lasts beyond us. Something that helps people like me for generations." I stared at the plans, at this extraordinary thing my grandson was creating. "Where?" "Here in Brookline, about 2 miles from our house. Close enough that I can oversee construction and operations, far enough for privacy." He paused. "There's a residential unit reserved permanently for me. When you're gone, I'll move there. I'll have support but also independence. You won't have to worry." "I'll always worry." "I know, but you can worry less. Because I'm building my own safety net. Our safety net. For people like me who might not have a grandmother who fights for them." The project broke ground in December 2021. Lucas was 17, overseeing a $65 million construction project while finishing high school online. He'd convinced me to let him do independent study so he could focus on work that mattered to him. "Mr. Patterson came to the groundbreaking ceremony, now 84 and using a walker, but still sharp as ever. "Margaret, that boy of yours is something special. He's building an empire on kindness, on understanding, on giving people like him the chance he almost didn't get. He got it because of you." "No, he got it because he's extraordinary. I just didn't get in his way." Mrs. Chen disagreed. "You got in everyone else's way. Every school administrator, every insurance company, every person who tried to tell Lucas he couldn't. You got in their way and made them see what you saw. That's why he succeeded." Maybe we were both right. Maybe it took Lucas's brilliance and my stubbornness combined to create what he'd become. The company continued growing. Stephen was now Chief Operating Officer, managing 80 employees across 12 states, all neurodivergent, all thriving in jobs that use their natural abilities instead of fighting against them. We placed 15 people this month, Stephen reported during a quarterly meeting at our house. Average starting salary $48,000, retention rate 97%. Companies are fighting to get on our client list now. Because you're providing what they need, Lucas said. Pattern recognition, detail analysis, quality control, things neurotypical people struggle with, but autistic people excel at. It's not charity, it's good business. Linda came by one afternoon in February, not as our lawyer now but as a friend. She'd been following Lucas's projects with interest. Margaret, do you realize what he's built? In less than 2 years since selling his system, Lucas has created a profitable company, employing hundreds of people, and is constructing a facility that will change lives. He's 17 years old. He started planning when he was 9. Everything he does, he's been planning for years. Does that bother you? That he's always thinking 3 steps ahead? I thought about it. It used to. It felt like he couldn't just be a kid, couldn't just live in the moment. But then I realized that's how his brain works. Planning is how he feels safe. Building systems is how he expresses love. I can't change that, I can only appreciate it. You're a remarkable woman. I'm a grandmother who stayed. That's all. That's everything. Spring brought an unexpected visitor. Walsh, recently released from minimum security after serving 13 months. He showed up at our door on a Tuesday afternoon. Lucas was at the construction site. I was alone. I should have been afraid. Should have called the police. Instead, I opened the door and looked at this man who'd tried to destroy us. He looked terrible. Thin, older, broken. Prison had not been kind to him. Mrs. Sullivan. 1. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything. I know I can't undo what I did. But I needed to say it. I'm sorry. Why should I believe you? You shouldn't. I lied to you, tried to steal from you, participated in a scheme to defraud your grandson. I deserve your hatred. He looked at the ground. But I spent 13 months thinking about what I did, about Lucas, about how I tried to use the law, something I swore to uphold, to hurt a kid who'd already been hurt enough. I'm ashamed, deeply ashamed. Good. You should be. I can't practice law anymore. Can't get hired anywhere. I'm a convicted felon. I'm working at my brother's auto shop, changing oil, minimum wage, lost my house, my savings, everything. He finally looked at me. I deserved all of it. But I wanted you to know what Lucas built, that company helping neurodivergent people. I've been following it. It's extraordinary. You raised someone extraordinary. And I tried to destroy that for money. I'll never forgive myself. I studied him, this broken man seeking absolution I wasn't sure I could give. Does Sarah know you're here? Sarah won't speak to me. Blames me for everything. Says if I'd been a better lawyer we would have won. He laughed bitterly. She still doesn't get it. Still doesn't understand that Lucas was always going to win because he was prepared and we were just greedy. What do you want from me? Nothing. I don't deserve anything. He struggled with words. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. What you did for Lucas. What he's become because you didn't give up. I wanted you to know that someone who tried to destroy that now understands how valuable it is. After he left, I sat on my porch for a long time. When Lucas came home, I told him about the visit. Do you believe him? Lucas asked. I think he's sincere. I think prison and losing everything taught him something Sarah never learned. That consequences are real. Will you forgive him? I don't know. Maybe someday. Not for him, for me. Because holding on to anger is exhausting. Lucas nodded, processing. That's logical. Forgiveness as self-care rather than absolution for the perpetrator. I'll consider that approach when I'm ready. Are you angry at Sarah? No. Anger requires emotional investment. I don't invest emotion in people who don't matter. Sarah is irrelevant to my life now. She's just a cautionary tale about what happens when greed overrides morality. So clinical. So Lucas. But I heard something underneath a child who'd been abandoned, processing that abandonment in the only way his brain knew how, through logic and distance and building walls that kept the pain away. The Sullivan Center was completed in September 2022, almost exactly 2 years after Lucas had sold his system. The facility was beautiful modern design with soft edges, natural light everywhere, soundproofed walls, adjustable lighting in every room. The open house drew hundreds of people, families with autistic adults desperate for housing options, disability advocates, city officials. News media covering the teenage autistic millionaire who'd built a facility for people like him. Lucas gave a speech at the dedication. He'd practiced it for weeks. Public speaking didn't come naturally, but he'd learned how to manage it. "This building exists because someone stayed," he said, looking directly at me in the crowd. "Because when I was 6 years old and difficult and expensive, my grandmother didn't leave. She stayed. She fought. She made it possible for me to become someone who could build this. The Sullivan Center is named for her because none of this happens without her. Not the company, not this building, not me. She's the foundation. Everything else is built on." I cried through the entire speech. Mrs. Chen held my hand, herself crying. "You did good, Margaret," she whispered. "You did so good." The first residents moved in October. 25 autistic adults, ages 19 to 47, all previously living in situations that didn't meet their needs. Group homes that were too loud, too chaotic, too demanding. Family homes where they were burdens. Facilities that treated them like children instead of adults. Lucas interviewed every applicant personally, understanding their needs in ways neurotypical staff couldn't. "You'll have your own space," he told each one. "Designed for sensory needs. You can socialize in common areas or not, your choice. We have job training, life skills support, whatever you need. But this is your home, your rules, your life." I watched him give a tour to a 22-year-old woman named Emma who'd been living with her elderly parents, unemployed, isolated, convinced she'd never have independence. "This could be yours," Lucas told her, showing her a unit. Kitchen designed for easy meal prep. Blackout curtains for light sensitivity. White noise generators. Everything adjustable to your needs. Emma started crying. I never thought I could have my own place." "You can. You will. You deserve it." After she left, Lucas found me in the hallway. "Did I do okay? I'm not good at emotional support." "You were perfect. You gave her hope. That's everything. I gave her what you gave me. A place where someone understands. Where different isn't wrong, just different." That night, at our kitchen table with his blue cup and his precisely positioned eggs, Lucas said something unexpected. "Thank you." "For what?" "For the past 12 years. For every breakfast, every fight with schools and insurance companies, every night you stayed awake because I couldn't sleep, every time you chose me over easier options." He looked at me directly, sustained eye contact rare and meaningful. "I know I'm difficult. I know I made your life harder. But you stayed anyway. Thank you for staying." I reached across the table, took his hand. He let me, even though physical contact still wasn't comfortable. "Lucas, you didn't make my life harder. You made my life matter. Before you, I was just existing. After you, I had purpose. You were never a burden. You were a gift. That's not statistically accurate. It's emotionally accurate, and sometimes emotions matter more than statistics." He considered that. "I'm learning that. Slowly. You're teaching me. You're teaching me too. About strength, about preparation, about love that looks different than I expected but is just as real." We sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, 12 years of battles and victories between us. Outside, the world continued. Sarah in prison, Walsh changing oil at his brother's shop, lives we'd intersected with moving forward in their own ways. But inside our kitchen, with the blue cup and the white plate and the eggs positioned just right, we had peace. Finally, impossibly, we had peace. And it was everything. Lucas turned 18 in November 2022, and I expected him to want independence, to move out, to live on his own, to finally be free of the grandmother who'd raised him. Instead, he asked me a question over breakfast. "Can I buy us a new house?" I nearly choked on my coffee. "What?" "This house has the reverse mortgage. You're losing equity every month. It's not financially sound. I want to buy us a new house outright, no mortgage, something designed for both our needs. Accessible for you as you age, sensory-friendly for me. We can design it together. Lucas, I've lived in this house for 45 years. I know, and it has memories, but it also has stairs that are getting harder for you. Drafty windows, old plumbing. We can afford better. We should have better." He pulled up his tablet, showed me architectural drawings he'd already commissioned. 3 bedrooms. Main floor master for you, no stairs. Soundproofed office for me, garden space, 2 miles from the Sullivan Center so I can walk there. What do you think? I looked at the plans, at this beautiful house my grandson wanted to build for us. You really want to keep living with me? Why wouldn't I? We're a good team. You make breakfast correctly. You understand my routines. You don't try to change me. He paused, struggled with words. You're home, Grandma. Why would I want to leave home? The house was completed by June 2023. Modern, efficient, beautiful. My bedroom had an attached bathroom with grab bars and a walk-in shower accommodations I'd been too proud to admit I needed. Lucas's space was soundproofed and climate-controlled, exactly as he needed it. But my favorite part was the kitchen. Lucas had designed it specifically for our morning routine, the cabinet where the white plate lived, the exact height for me to reach comfortably. The spot for his blue cup, now in a special holder he'd custom-made. 12 years of the same breakfast, he said during the walkthrough, seemed important to make it easy to continue. Mrs. Chen was our first visitor, of course. She walked through slowly, taking in every detail. Lucas built you a palace. Lucas built us a home. That boy loves you more than he knows how to say. He says it every day, just not with words. If this part touched something deep inside you, hit that like button so I know it reached you. Do you see your own reflection in this character's journey? Tell me in the comments your story might just inspire someone else. The company continued expanding. Stephen reported in July that they'd placed over 500 people in jobs. Success rate remained above 95%. Companies were now seeking them out, understanding the value neurodivergent employees brought. But Lucas was already thinking beyond placement. We need education, he told me one evening. Companies want to hire autistic people but don't know how. We need to teach them communication styles, sensory accommodations, management approaches. That's the next phase. He launched NeuroTalent Academy in August, corporate training programs teaching companies how to recruit, hire, and support neurodivergent employees. The first workshop sold out in 48 hours. I attended one session, sitting in the back while Lucas taught a room full of HR professionals and managers. Autistic people aren't broken, he said, his voice steady and clear. We're different. We communicate differently, process information differently, experience the world differently. That's not a disability. It's a different operating system. Your job isn't to fix us. It's to create environments where our operating system can function optimally. He showed them examples how to write job postings that attracted neurodivergent candidates, how to modify interview processes, how to provide sensory accommodations. Practical, actionable information delivered without condescension or apology. The executives ate it up. By October, Lucas had contracts with 15 Fortune 500 companies. You're changing the world, I told him. I'm changing small parts of it, that's enough. But it wasn't small. Every person he placed in a job, every company he taught, every resident at the Sullivan Center living independently, those were lives changed, futures created, possibilities realized. In November, an unexpected letter arrived. From Sarah. My hands shook holding it. Lucas was at work. I stood in our new kitchen, staring at handwriting I hadn't seen in 13 years. Should I open it? Show Lucas first? Throw it away? I opened it. Dear Margaret, I don't expect you to read this. I don't deserve your attention or your time. But I'm writing anyway, because I need to say things I should have said 13 years ago. I was wrong. About everything. Lucas wasn't defective, I was. He wasn't the problem, I was. You weren't controlling, you were protecting. I see that now, sitting in prison with nothing but time to think about what I destroyed. I abandoned my son because he was hard. Because I was weak. Because I valued my comfort over his needs. Then I tried to steal from him when he succeeded despite me. Every choice I made was wrong. Every excuse I gave myself was a lie. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know I see what you did. Raising him alone for 13 years. Fighting for him when everyone said he'd never succeed. Building a life for him when I threw him away. You gave him everything I should have given him. You were the mother he deserved. I was just the woman who gave birth to him. I heard about the Sullivan Center. About the company. About everything Lucas is building. I'm proud of him, though I have no right to be. Pride requires participation. I participated in nothing but cruelty. I have 6 more years in here. When I get out, I won't contact you. I won't try to see Lucas. I've done enough damage. This letter is just, I needed you to know that I understand what I lost. Not the money. Him. I lost the chance to know an extraordinary person because I was too selfish to see his value. Take care of him, though you've been doing that for 13 years without my permission or input. Take care of yourself too. Lucas needs you more than he'll ever say. Sarah. I read it 3 times. Then Lucas came home and found me crying at the kitchen table. What's wrong? He saw the letter, tensed. Is that from her? Yes. What does she want? Nothing. She's apologizing. Says she won't contact us when she's released. Says she understands what she lost. Lucas took the letter, read it carefully. His expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. Do you believe her? I asked. Statistically, people in prison often experience genuine remorse. Facing consequences can trigger authentic self-reflection. He set the letter down, but belief requires trust. I don't trust her. I don't forgive her. But he struggled. I don't hate her either. Hate requires caring. She's just someone who made terrible choices and is now living with them. That's very mature. It's logical. Emotion doesn't change facts. She abandoned me. You raised me. Those facts don't change regardless of how I feel about them. Do you want to respond? Write back? He thought about it for a long time. No. Response suggests dialogue. I don't want dialogue. I want her to serve her sentence, rebuild whatever life she can build, and leave us alone. That's the best outcome for everyone. So we didn't respond. But I kept the letter, filed it away with all the other documentation from 13 years. Evidence of Sarah's choices, from abandonment to attempted theft, to finally, maybe, understanding. The holidays approached, our first in the new house. I wanted to make them special, traditional turkey dinner, decorations, gifts. Lucas tolerated it for me, though he found the disruption to routine stressful. On Christmas morning, he gave me a gift that made me cry. A photo album. Not just any album, every picture I'd taken of him over 13 years, professionally printed and bound, organized chronologically, each photo with a caption in Lucas's careful handwriting. Age 6 first day. Learning to trust. Age 7 organizing cars. Finding patterns. Age 9 first written question. Beginning to communicate. Age 12 first computer. Building toward the future. Age 16 court victory. Truth prevails. Age 18 Sullivan Center dedication. Creating something lasting. You documented my life, Lucas said as I flipped through pages, sobbing. I wanted to document ours, everything we built together, so you can see what I see, not a burden, not a struggle. A partnership that created something extraordinary. The last page had a recent photo, both of us in front of our new house, Lucas's arm awkwardly around my shoulders, both of us smiling. The caption read, Home. Thank you, I whispered. This is the most beautiful thing anyone's ever given me. You gave me 13 years of safety. I gave you 1 photo album. The exchange is unequal. No. It's perfect. That evening, Mrs. Chen came for dinner. She always joined us for holidays now. She brought her famous dumplings, Lucas's favorite because the texture was consistent and the flavor profile never varied. To family, she toasted with apple juice. Lucas didn't drink alcohol, and I'd stopped years ago. Not the family we're born into, but the family we build. To family, I echoed. Lucas raised his blue cup, that same cracked, faded cup from 13 years ago, now permanently stationed in our new kitchen. To family, to documentation, to truth that prevails over lies. To staying when leaving would be easier. That's quite a toast, Mrs. Chen laughed. It's accurate, Lucas said seriously. Those are the values that got us here. They're worth acknowledging. After dinner, Lucas went to his office he had work to review. Mrs. Chen helped me clean up, like she'd been doing for 13 years. He's happy, she observed. In his own way, he's happy. Yes, he's built a life that makes sense to him. Work he finds meaningful, home that's comfortable, routines that keep him stable. That's Lucas's version of happiness. And you? Are you happy? I thought about it. 13 years ago, I'd been 74, terrified, convinced I was too old to raise an autistic child. Now I was 87, still tired sometimes, still overwhelmed occasionally, but yes, I said, surprising myself with the certainty. Yes, I'm happy. I have purpose. I have Lucas. I have this life we built together. It's not the life I imagined, but it's better. It matters more. Good. You deserve happiness. So did Lucas. He just had to build it himself because the world wasn't going to give it to him. With your help. With my help, I agreed. But mostly his own brilliance and determination and refusal to accept that different meant less. That night, lying in my comfortable bed in our beautiful house that Lucas had built for us, I thought about the journey. 13 years from a terrified 6-year-old being abandoned on a porch to an 18-year-old changing the world for people like him. 13 years of breakfasts and routines and battles and victories. 13 years of learning that love doesn't always look like hugs and I love yous. Sometimes love looks like documentation and preparation and building systems that keep people safe. Sometimes love looks like a grandmother who stays and a grandson who remembers everything, and together they build something extraordinary from abandonment and autism and absolute refusal to give up. I fell asleep smiling, grateful for every difficult day that led to this peaceful night. In the morning, Lucas would make breakfast. He'd learned how, wanted to take over some mornings to give me a break. The eggs would be perfect. The toast positioned exactly right, the blue cup filled to the precise level. Everything the same. Everything exactly as it should be. Because routine was love. And we had 13 years of proof. I turned 88 in March 2024, and my body finally started admitting what my mind had been denying for years. I was getting old. Not just older. Old. The kind of old where stairs were enemies and mornings took an hour just to get moving. The kind where medications filled a weekly pill organizer and doctor appointments outnumbered social engagements. Lucas noticed immediately, of course. Your mobility is declining. 14% slower walking speed than 6 months ago. You're having trouble with the jar lid's grip strength is decreasing. He said it clinically, but I heard the worry underneath. I'm hiring a home health aide. I don't need. Yes, you do. And I need you to have one. For my peace of mind. He pulled up a tablet with candidate profiles. I've interviewed 12 people. 3 are suitable. You choose which one. I chose Maria, 52, experienced with elderly patients, calm demeanor that wouldn't aggravate Lucas's sensory sensitivities. She started the following week, coming 3 days to help with bathing, medication management, physical therapy exercises. I feel like I'm failing you, I told Lucas one morning after Maria had helped me out of the shower, something I'd done independently for 88 years until suddenly I couldn't anymore. You're not failing. You're aging. That's normal human biology. He was making breakfast now most mornings, had perfected the routine. Eggs exactly right, toast positioned precisely. You took care of me for 14 years. Let me take care of you now. But you shouldn't have to. Why not? We're partners. Partners support each other. He set my plate down, filled the blue cup. Yes, I used it now too. He'd bought a matching one when we moved. Besides, you're not a burden. You're an investment that's paid returns for 14 years. Now you're in the maintenance phase. That's logical resource management. Only Lucas could make aging sound like a business strategy. But I understood what he meant. I wasn't disposable. I still mattered. Even when my body was failing, I still had value to him. The company held its 5-year anniversary celebration in April. Over 1,000 people placed in jobs, 85% retention rate, 20 Fortune 500 companies as clients. The Sullivan Center was at capacity with a waiting list of 200 names. Lucas gave a speech at the celebration. He'd gotten better at public speaking, though it still drained him. 5 years ago, I sold a system designed to detect lies and verify truth. I used that money to build something truthful, a company that proves autistic people aren't charity cases or inspiration material. We're workers, contributors, valuable members of society. That's the truth. Everything we've built is just evidence of that truth. The crowd applauded, mostly neurodivergent employees and their families, people whose lives Lucas had changed. I sat in the front row, Maria beside me in case I needed help, and cried with pride. Stephen approached after, now 28, and polished in a way he hadn't been at 18. Mrs. Cooper, I need to tell you something. When I was in 4th grade, everyone said I'd never succeed. Too autistic, too difficult, too much. You fought for me, convinced Principal Anderson to keep me in regular classes. Remember? Of course I remember. You saved my life. Literally. Because staying in those classes meant I could go to college, get hired, have a career. And now I'm COO of a company worth $40 million. Because you fought for one weird 4th grader 20 years ago. You weren't weird. You were extraordinary. See, that's what Lucas says too. Not weird, extraordinary. He learned that from you. And now he's teaching it to thousands of people. Stephen's eyes were wet. You didn't just save him. You saved all of us. Everyone Lucas has helped, that started with you believing one autistic kid deserved a chance. After Stephen left, Lucas found me crying in the corner. Are you okay? I'm perfect. I'm so proud of you, of everything you've built, of who you've become. I became this because you stayed, because you fought, because you modeled what advocacy looks like. He hesitated, then hugged me brief, awkward, but genuine. Thank you for staying. May brought concerning news. My cardiologist found irregularities in my EKG. Nothing immediately dangerous, but indicators that my heart was wearing out. How long? I asked Dr. Patterson, Mr. Patterson's daughter, now my doctor, as her father had retired. Impossible to say. Could be years. Could be months. We'll monitor closely. Adjust medications. But Margaret? She was gentle. You're 88. Your body has been through a lot. It's time to think about end-of-life planning. I told Lucas that evening. He took it the way he took everything, analyzing, processing, planning. What are your wishes? Medical interventions, resuscitation, hospice care? I need to know so I can ensure they're honored. Lucas, we don't need to discuss this now. Yes, we do. Denial doesn't change reality. You're dying not immediately, but eventually, probably soon. I need to prepare. That's how I handle stress, by preparing. So we discussed it. My wishes for medical care, comfort over intervention when the time came. My funeral plans simple, cremation, no religious service since I'd stopped believing in God years ago. My will everything to Lucas, though he insisted on setting aside funds for Mrs. Chen and Maria and others who'd helped us. What about me? Lucas asked. After. What do I do after? The question broke my heart. You keep living, you keep building, you keep helping people. That's logistically clear. I mean emotionally. How do I... He struggled. You're the only parent I've ever had, the only person who stayed. How do I exist without that? I took his hand, held tight. You exist the same way you always have, with routine and systems and documentation. You move into the Sullivan Center like you planned. You keep running the company. You keep changing lives. And when you miss me, because you will miss me, even if it feels different than how other people miss you, look at that photo album you made me. You remember that I stayed because you were worth staying for. And you keep being worth it. That's not comforting. No, but it's true. And we've always dealt in truth. June brought a visitor I never expected, Walsh. Not at our house this time. He called first, asked if he'd be willing to meet at a coffee shop. Lucas came with me, protective. Walsh looked different than at our last meeting. Still thin, still diminished, but there was something else. Peace, maybe, acceptance. Thank you for seeing me, he said. I know I have no right. You don't, Lucas agreed. But we're here anyway. What do you want? To show you something. Walsh pulled out a folder, handed it to Lucas. Inside, documentation of volunteer work at an autism center, letters of recommendation from the director, certification in disability advocacy. After prison, I couldn't practice law, couldn't get hired anywhere professional, so I started volunteering at the New England Autism Center. Just helping out filing, organizing, whatever they needed. Then they asked me to lead support groups for parents. I've been doing that for 18 months now. Why? I asked. Because I hurt the autistic community. I tried to steal from Lucas, tried to use the law to harm someone vulnerable. I can't undo that. But I can try to pay back in some small way. Help other families. Teach parents what not to do. Share my story as a warning. Lucas studied the documents with his characteristic thoroughness. These are genuine. The volunteer hours are documented. The letters are sincere. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Walsh said quickly. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know what you said in court, Lucas. About how autistic people aren't broken. Just different. That changed me. Made me see what I'd been too greedy to see before. Now I'm trying to help others see it too. Why tell us? Lucas asked. Because you deserve to know that some good came from that nightmare. That maybe my crime, my punishment, my redemption, maybe it helps other families avoid what we did to you. That's not enough. It'll never be enough. But it's something. After Walsh left, Lucas was quiet for a long time. Do you believe him? I asked. Yes. His documentation is thorough. His transformation appears genuine. He's found purpose in atonement. Lucas paused. Do I forgive him? I don't know. Forgiveness isn't logical, but I don't wish him further harm. That's probably the closest to forgiveness I can get. That's enough. Forgiveness doesn't have to be emotional. It just has to be letting go of the anger. I never had anger, just calculation of threat and response. Now the threat is neutralized. The calculation is complete. We drove home in comfortable silence. Lucas had his license now, did all the driving. I sat in the passenger seat of the car he'd bought, sensory-friendly, smooth ride, exactly what he needed, and watched my grandson navigate the same streets we'd been driving for 14 years. Lucas? Yes? When I'm gone, will you be okay? He thought about it seriously. Define okay. Will you have people? Support? Connection? I have Stephen and the company team. I have residents at the Sullivan Center who understand me. I have Mrs. Chen, she's 81, but still healthy. I have Maria. I have systems and routines and work that matters. By most definitions, I'll be okay. Will you be happy? I'll be purposeful. That's my version of happy. Building things, helping people, maintaining order, that's what gives me satisfaction. He glanced at me briefly. I'll miss you. I don't experience grief like neurotypical people, but I'll miss you. Your presence is part of my routine. Losing you will disrupt that routine. It'll be hard, but you'll adapt. I always adapt. That's what autistic people do. We adapt to a world not designed for us. Adapting to your absence will hurt, but I'll do it, because you taught me how. That night, I wrote Lucas a letter, to be opened after I died, telling him everything I never quite knew how to say, how proud I was, how much he'd changed my life, how loving him had been the greatest privilege of my existence. I sealed it, labeled it, put it in the safe with my will and other important documents. Then I went to bed in our beautiful house, comfortable and safe, knowing that when my time came, Lucas would be okay. Not just surviving, thriving, building, creating, changing the world one neurodivergent life at a time. That was enough. More than enough. That was legacy. 3 years passed in the gentle rhythm Lucas and I had perfected. Same breakfasts, same routines, same quiet partnership that had carried us through 14 years of battles and victories. But in October 2027, my body finally said enough. I collapsed in the kitchen one morning while Lucas was making eggs. One moment I was reaching for my medication, the next I was on the floor, the world spinning, pain radiating through my chest like lightning. "Grandma!" Lucas's voice, sharp with panic and emotion he rarely showed. He had his phone out immediately, calling 911 with clinical precision even as his hands shook. 88-year-old female, cardiac event, shallow breathing, pulse weak and irregular. The ambulance came. The hospital. Tests and tubes and beeping machines. Dr. Patterson's grave face telling Lucas what we'd both known was coming. Her heart is failing. We can keep her comfortable. But Margaret, she looked at me with compassion. This is the beginning of the end. Days, maybe a week. I want to go home, I said immediately. Not here. Home. Lucas arranged everything within hours: hospice care at home, Maria full-time, pain management, everything I needed. By evening, I was in my own bed in our beautiful house, surrounded by everything familiar. Lucas pulled a chair beside my bed. He hadn't left since the ambulance arrived. "You need to rest," I told him. "You haven't slept." "I'll sleep," when he couldn't finish the sentence. "I'll sleep later." Lucas, we knew this was coming. Knowing doesn't make it easier. That's what I'm learning. All my preparation, all my planning, it doesn't actually prevent pain. It just gives me the illusion of control." His voice cracked. "I don't want you to die. I know, baby. But I'm 88. I'm tired. And I took his hand. I'm proud. So proud. Of everything you've built. Of who you've become. You took abandonment and autism and turned it into empire and empathy. That's extraordinary. You made that possible. We made it possible. Together. That's the point. Not me alone, not you alone. Together." I squeezed his hand with what little strength I had left. "Promise me you'll remember that. When you're helping other families, other autistic kids, remind them that partnership is possible. That different doesn't mean alone." "I promise." Mrs. Chen came that evening, tears streaming down her wrinkled face. She'd been fighting cancer herself, stage 3, we'd discovered 6 months ago. We were both dying, just at different speeds. "We had a good run," she said, sitting on the other side of my bed. "The best run. Thank you for everything. For the money when I had none. For the support when I was breaking. For believing in Lucas when the world didn't. That boy made it easy to believe. He was always going to be something special, just needed someone to not get in his way." She looked at Lucas. "You take care of yourself, you hear me? Your grandma wouldn't want you working yourself to death." "I'll try." "Don't try, do. That's an order from a bossy old woman who's earned the right to be bossy." The next few days blurred together. Maria managing my medications. Lucas reading to me not children's books, but the technical manuals and research papers he loved, his way of sharing what mattered to him. Stephen visited, brought the entire company leadership team. They stood around my bed, 12 neurodivergent adults who'd found purpose in employment because Lucas had believed in them. "Mrs. Cooper, you started this," Stephen said. "Every life Lucas has changed, it traces back to you, because you saw value where everyone else saw burden. You taught him that different wasn't less. And he taught all of us. That's your legacy." "My legacy is him," I whispered. "Everything else is just ripples." On the 5th day, something unexpected happened. The doorbell rang. Maria answered, came back looking uncertain. "Margaret, there's someone here. Says she needs to see you. I can send her away." "Who?" Maria's expression was complicated. "Sarah Cooper." The room went silent. Lucas stood immediately, defensive. "No, absolutely not. She doesn't get." "Let her in," I said. "Grandma. Please, I need to finish this." Sarah looked worse than at her sentencing 7 years ago. She'd been released on parole 2 months earlier. Lucas had known but hadn't told me, protecting me from the stress. She was thin, hair completely gray now, wearing thrift store clothes. She looked like what she was, a woman destroyed by her own choices. "Margaret, She stood in the doorway, not entering without permission. "I heard you were dying. I know I have no right to be here. I know the restraining order technically." "It's fine," I said. "Come in. Sit." Lucas looked betrayed, but he didn't argue. Sarah sat in the chair farthest from the bed, hands twisted in her lap. "I'm not here to ask for anything," she said quickly. I needed to say I'm sorry. Really say it, to your face. I destroyed so much. Lucas's childhood, your retirement, your savings, your peace, and for what? Money I never got. Status I lost. Nothing. I destroyed everything for nothing." "Yes, you did." The bluntness of it made her flinch. "Good. I can't undo it. Can't give back the years. Can't erase the damage, but I wanted you to know I see it now. I see what I threw away. Not just money, him." She looked at Lucas, who stared back with zero expression. "I threw away the chance to know an extraordinary person, to watch him grow, to be part of what he built. I chose comfort over love. And I'll regret that until the day I die." "Good," I said. "You should regret it, every single day, because what you did was unforgivable." "I know, but I struggled to breathe, the pain increasing." Maria adjusted my oxygen. "But Lucas turned out extraordinary anyway. Not because of you. Despite you. So your cruelty didn't win. He won. We won, and that's what matters." Sarah was crying now, ugly crying, mascara running. Can I just tell him I'm sorry? Just once? Lucas spoke before I could. No. Lucas. No. His voice was firm, final. You don't get that. You don't get closure or forgiveness or peace. You made choices. You live with them. That's how consequences work. I just wanted. I know what you wanted. You wanted to feel better about what you did. But that's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to myself, to Grandma, to the people I'm helping. You're not part of that equation. You haven't been for 17 years. You won't be for the rest of my life. Sarah stood up, broken. I understand. I'll go. She looked at me one last time. Thank you. For raising him. For being what I should have been. He's magnificent, and that's because of you. After she left, Lucas came back to my bedside. Why did you let her in? Because she needed to see what she lost, what we built, the difference between her choices and ours. I took his hand, and because I needed to see that she understands, that somewhere in there, she developed a conscience. It's not forgiveness. It's just closure. Did you get it? Closure? Yes. Because I can die knowing she'll live the rest of her life understanding what she destroyed. That's justice enough. That night, I woke to find Lucas crying. Actual tears streaming down his face, his body shaking with sobs he'd never learned how to release properly. I don't know how to do this, he gasped. I don't know how to lose you. I pulled him close. He came willingly, buried his face in my shoulder like he was 6 years old again. You do it one day at a time. Same way we did everything else. One breakfast at a time, one routine at a time, one memory at a time. It won't be the same. No, it'll be different. But different doesn't mean less, remember? You taught the world that. Now you have to believe it yourself. He cried for an hour while I held him. This brilliant man who'd saved us both, finally letting himself be the scared child he'd never been allowed to be. On the 7th day, I woke up feeling clear. Clearer than I'd felt in months. Dr. Patterson called it the rally, that last burst of clarity before the end. Lucas, listen carefully. I need to tell you things. He sat up immediately, alert. I'm listening. First, you were never a burden. Not one single day. Every hard moment, every difficult routine, every sacrifice, I'd do it all again. Loving you was easy. It was everything else that was hard. Grandma. Second, don't let work consume you. Build relationships. Let people in. You don't have to do it like neurotypical people, but do it your way. Steve and Maria, the residents at Sullivan Center, those are your people. Keep them close. I will. Third, your mother. Don't forgive her if you can't, but don't let hating her consume you either. She's irrelevant. Keep her that way. Already planned. Fourth. My voice was fading. Fourth. The photo album you made me. Look at it when you miss me. Remember that we were extraordinary together. Remember that love looks different for different people. Remember that you proved every single person wrong who said you couldn't. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. But you didn't have to. That's the difference. That's what family means. What's the fifth thing? Fifth, live, Lucas. Really live. Not just exist in routines and systems. Find joy. Find purpose beyond work. Find whatever happiness looks like for you. Promise me. I promise. I died that evening, October 15th, 2027, with Lucas holding my hand and Maria praying quietly in the corner, and Mrs. Chen whispering, "Thank you for everything, old friend." My last thought was of Lucas at 6 years old, abandoned on my porch with a Toy Story backpack and terror in his eyes. And Lucas at 19, holding my hand, extraordinary and strong and everything that child was always meant to become. We'd won. Against abandonment and autism and greed and cruelty and every single person who said it was impossible. We'd won. Lucas stood at the dedication of the Margaret Sullivan wing of the Sullivan Center, 50 additional units funded entirely by Neurotalent Connections profits. He was 24 now. The company had expanded to international operations. 3,000 employees, all neurodivergent. 15,000 total placements. Impact that would have been impossible to imagine when he was 6 years old, abandoned and terrified. My grandmother used to say that different doesn't mean less, Lucas told the crowd. She said it so many times that I believed it, built a life on believing it. This wing is named for her because everything I've built, the company, this center, the educational programs, all of it starts with one simple lesson she taught me: stay. When things are hard, when people are difficult, when love is complicated, stay anyway. That's what she did. That's what I'm doing. Staying, building. Helping people like me understand that we're not broken. We're extraordinary. We just need people who see it. The crowd applauded. Stephen stood beside him, now Chief Executive Officer. Mrs. Chen's daughter was there. Mrs. Chen had passed 2 years after Margaret, but her family stayed connected to Lucas. Maria was there, retired now, but still checking on Lucas weekly. And in the front row, a photo of Margaret, 88 years old, smiling, extraordinary. Lucas touched his blue cup. He still carried it, still used it every day. 17 years of memories in one cracked piece of plastic. "Thank you for staying, Grandma," he whispered. "Look what we built." The lessons, knowledge, and education for all of us. This story carries profound knowledge about human resilience and unconditional love. The knowledge that Margaret demonstrated teaches us that family isn't about biology, it's about commitment. The knowledge that Lucas gained through his journey shows us that disability can become ability when given proper support. This knowledge is transformative. This knowledge changes lives. This knowledge must be shared with every family facing similar struggles. The education this story provides is invaluable. First, it offers education about autism, showing that autistic individuals aren't broken, just different. Second, it provides education about advocacy, teaching us to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. Third, it gives education about love, demonstrating that love looks different for different people. Fourth, this education teaches preparation and documentation matter in protecting vulnerable individuals. Fifth, this education reminds us that consequences eventually catch up with cruelty. The lessons here are universal. Lesson 1. Never abandon those who need you, no matter how difficult the journey. Lesson 2. Different abilities require different approaches, not lower expectations. Lesson 3. Documentation and preparation protect against lies and fraud. Lesson 4. Greed destroys, but genuine love builds legacies. Lesson 5. What seems like sacrifice in the moment becomes purpose in retrospect. Margaret's education of Lucas, teaching him his worth, his value, his capability, created ripples that changed thousands of lives. That's the power of education combined with love. That's the lesson every parent, grandparent, and caregiver needs. Your belief in someone can literally transform their future. Lucas's knowledge of patterns, his education in documentation, his lessons in preparation, these weren't just skills, they were survival tools that became weapons for justice. That's another lesson. Turn your unique abilities into assets, not liabilities. Thank you for watching this story on Voices of Auntie Rose. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think about love differently, if it reminded you that extraordinary things happen when people refuse to give up, please hit that subscribe button. Click the like button. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. We share stories like this every day. Stories of resilience, redemption, justice, and love that looks different than we expect. Your subscription helps us continue bringing these powerful narratives to people who need them. Tell us in the comments, how did this story affect you? Have you experienced something similar? Do you know someone like Lucas or Margaret? We want to hear from your heart. Your comments, your stories, your experiences, they matter to us and to everyone in this community. What lessons did you take from Margaret and Lucas's journey? What knowledge will you carry forward? How will this education change how you see the world? Remember, every child deserves a Margaret. Every person with differences deserves someone who sees their potential. Be that person for someone in your life. We wish everyone watching this video good health, joyful days, and peaceful hearts. May you find the strength to stay when leaving would be easier. May you build something extraordinary from whatever challenges you face. Thank you for being part of our community. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. This is Voices of Auntie Rose, reminding you that the best stories come from real life, real love, and real courage. See you in the next video. Take care of yourselves and each other. Goodbye for now, dear friends.